get bold and get on the bright side.
A neat, well-scrubbed group of youngsters from around the country, called the Boys Nation, is in Washington for a citizenship course. And they were invited today to the Rose Garden at the White House to hear a few words from the President.
So you're Jerry and David. David. President and Vice President.
Yes, sir.
So you like, you're going to be the next Spiro Agnew, right? In congratulating the winners, I'd like to say just a word about those who have lost. I've been in both positions, so I know how you feel. As we look at our young generation today, I can realize the terrible disappointment and frustration that particularly young people have when they see the ideals that they believe in not being accepted. And then there is an understandable tendency when what you want, the man you want, or the program you want doesn't win, to say, well, what's wrong is that the system is wrong. And so you throw up your hands and you either bug out of the system or you attempt to overturn it through even non-peaceful means. But that isn't the way. We've always had throughout our nation's history times when men who were highly idealistic lost battles. But after losing them, they continued to fight. And years later, they came back to win them.
The Ripon Society, a group of Republican liberals or moderates or something like that, issued to its own party a few words of advice. Don't try to compete with George Wallace in the Deep South. Instead, it said the Republicans should try to win votes in the peripheral areas or northern parts of the South, where Don't try to compete with George Wallace in the Deep South. Instead, it said the Republicans should try to win votes in the peripheral areas or northern parts of the South, where Republicans have always done better anyway.
The fact, as the White House sees it, is that the peripheral South will be vital to a Nixon victory in 1972 as it was in 1968. And as before, George Wallace will be around again draining off Nixon votes. Specifically, Tennessee, Florida, and North Carolina in the peripheral South once again are viewed as critical states, and South Carolina in the Deep South. That's why Senator Thurman's bitter attack last week on recent administration desegregation actions was viewed with considerable alarm here. Thurman represents significant sentiment in those critical states, and right now White House officials are trying to mollify the senator. Other administration agents are in the South trying to explain to upset Republican leaders there that what the administration did recently on filing school desegregation suits, and even more so on depriving tax exemptions to private segregated schools, were things that by law had to be done. But it's a difficult selling job. One White House aide just back from the South today says, wherever I went, I got it. Complaints. The president hopes that the issue will be resolved for the most part this fall. Still, it remains a most challenging political dilemma for this administration to keep Senator Thurman on the team for 1972 and to keep those votes from drifting to Wallace. Herbert Kaplow, NBC News at the White House.
Lockheed, like a few other prime defense contractors, is owned about as much by the Pentagon as by its private stockholders. And so its present financial difficulties are as much the work of the Pentagon as of its private management. Lockheed now is trying to bail itself out to stay in business and is looking for money from private banks and from Congress. Well, so did the Penn Central Railroad ask Congress for help, and it got turned down. Whether Congress will help to bail out one of the Pentagon's prime contractors is now in some dispute.
Congress is more inclined to help Lockheed than it was the Penn Central Railroad a few weeks ago. Thus, it's possible the government will bail out the big aircraft maker. The government assistance being proposed is in two parts. First would be an outright appropriation of $200 million to cover cost overruns for the giant C-5A cargo plane. A bill providing the payment already has been approved by the House, but it faces strong opposition in the Senate. Nonetheless, it may be saved by the efforts of Georgia's Richard Russell, one of the respected old-timers, who is making it a personal matter to help his state. The second form of assistance would be a loan of $100 million provided by the 24 banks, a loan that would be guaranteed by the government. The administration can do this without the consent of Congress. There may be pitfalls along the way, but as of now, Lockheed stands a much better chance than Penn Central did of getting significant government help. Paul Duke, NBC News at the Capitol.
A federal judge in Philadelphia said today that the job of reorganizing the bankrupt Penn Central Railroad is no ordinary task, and it has to be done by extraordinary men, and he named 4 trustees to run the road. Willard Wirtz, former Secretary of Labor; George Pierce Baker, former Dean of the Harvard Law School; Jervis Langdon, Jr., Chairman of the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad; and Richard Bond, Chairman of the John Wanamaker Stores.
Great moments at breakfast, presented by Kellogg's Rice Krispies.